I'm Yolanda and I'm going to be interviewing Melanie Oxley. Hello, Melanie. How are you?
Doing great.
That's awesome. So, Melanie, think of a person you met in class you now consider to be a friend. What type of active perception activities did you engage into with this particular person? Not only that, how would you assess your skill level of observing, questioning, and processing information to get to know this other person?
Okay. Quite a lengthy question. If I were to use an example of someone, it would probably be Ashley. I probably never would have talked to her, much less like anyone else in the class. But this class was about group work.
Right.
A lot of the major projects was just presentations, working with other people. And I think that in working with her, at first, it really put me off because, like, I have a fear of group work because all I can think about is, it's going to be one-sided, oh my goodness, oh no.
More of an introvert?
Yes.
Oh.
But towards the end, when me and you, because you were also in the same group, approached her and let her know that, hey, we have, like, it was getting close to the ringer, we need to get together and work on this. She started talking a lot more. She texted a lot more. Whenever we had conversations, she would hold eye contact. She wouldn't, like, look away or look down or just mutter.
Yes, I noticed that as well.
So I think that through that, we became a lot closer.
Interesting. Great answer. Thank you. Can you describe the sources of power you possess in ways that you influence others at school or even another location?
Sources of power.
Yes.
So physically?
Yes.
Like in Peterson's chapter 1?
Absolutely.
Yes. You know, the thing they tell you, so like when it first started, I was in band, you know, sit up straight.
Yes.
You know, you tap your foot, look forward, make eye contact, that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
So the only difference is, like, if you're standing and you're having a conversation, keeping it. So I do that.
Nice.
Another thing is, I guess in conversation, it would be more about, I never come in, like, high and mighty conversation. I'm always like, oh, I'm, like, a little lower than you are. Just because I myself, I'm an introvert, so I know how awkward it can be for other people to have to talk to you.
Right. Absolutely.
Like the dreaded, let's partner up for this assignment that you hear in school.
Right. Interesting.
So I always try to keep small talk, you know. I don't ask them deep questions.
Right.
So.
Great answers. Very good answers, Melanie. Thank you. Have you ever blamed someone for something that you later found out was out of his control or her control? What could you do to avoid making a similar perceptual error in the future? Anything you can think of?
Well, as a teenager, that is probably one of the most common things I do. When something's misplaced, I go and blame someone else when it wasn't their fault or something like that.
Of course.
But most of the time I only ever do it out of anger. Like if the situation has angered me. But other than that, I stay away from that because I hate confrontation.
Absolutely.
So start picking fights is not my thing. It's just not, it doesn't get anywhere.
I hate it too as well. Do you have maybe like a personal experience where you were in this situation?
I think of one recently, not too ancient.
That's quite all right. We can follow back.
Oh, I know which one. Okay, so this one, it's a bit of a tough one, but I am a radical driver.
Really?
Well, not really so much radical as road rager. I'm impatient. Like, you know, I'm the best at driving in this family. You know, like the rest of you need to pick up your pace. You know, that kind of thing.
Is it kind of like a Fast and Furious thing?
Yes.
Oh.
So I am a backseat driver.
Okay.
So when a couple months ago we got into a wreck, and it wasn't even our fault. But I started, like, after, you know, the tears and, you know, cops and all that.
Right.
instead of like, oh, it wasn't your fault, it was like, why didn't you look both ways? It's just like, well, this was a light, that kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
And that wasn't their fault. So,
So I guess my next question would be, can you think of criticism that a close friend or family member has shared with you that pretty much strengthened the quality of your relationship with that particular person?
I would have to say it's not a specific person so much as I've gotten 2 criticisms from teachers in the past.
Right.
And one of them is quality over quantity.
Oh, interesting.
So invest a lot of time and your work will come out nicer, neater, more legible, that kind of thing.
High quality. I believe you can kind of say that you were able to grow from that situation and learn from it. Is that pretty accurate?
Yes, I still talk to that teacher.
Wow.
Because I have to go over there every now and then to volunteer. I still talk to them.
That's wonderful.
And one of the things is that's also something we covered in the Peterson books.
Absolutely. Yes.
So, it's one thing for one person to say it, but it's another for it to actually be in a book.
Oh, most definitely. I absolutely agree. Thank you.
So that's one of the key things.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. So we're going to culture. Have differences in social class ever played a role in your communication and interaction with others? And please describe the situation if so.
Okay, this one happens quite a lot. So I go to a school that most would consider it's middle upper class. So, but my family, we are lower class, just barely lower middle. So I come from it's a lot of blue collar workers, a lot.
Wow.
So anytime I'm at school or something, they try to push what do you want to be when you grow up? That
What's
the age old question, that. And everyone's like, oh, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a doctor, I want to be, a scientist, all this. And in my mind, I'm just like, plumbing doesn't sound that bad.
Right.
And that's not something that you have to go to a 4-year college for. You have to go to a specific trade school for.
Oh, interesting.
And my school doesn't set up programs for that kind of thing.
Right. Wow.
So a lot of times it's difficult, so I do get something singled out in those scenarios where they're just well, we have to create something separate for you.
Very interesting. Thank you, Mel. My next question is it ethical or appropriate for someone from one culture to attempt to change the other culture values of someone from a different culture? What do you think about that question?
Obviously, I don't think that's right. Everyone should stay in their own lane,
Absolutely.
But I also, I know that a lot of cultures feed off of each other. Look at our language. Half of it is Latin, that kind of thing.
Agree.
So I don't think one person should go have a vendetta to go change other people's cultures.
Right.
I just think it's something that happens naturally over time. Where they.
Do you feel as though that happens a lot in the country we're in, America, with people, or not as much?
I think it happens a lot because it's one thing for one group of people to be like, hey, I don't like them, don't let them do this. It's another if the government is to get involved.
Right.
It really is a thing of the people, the culture is. So anytime there's someone who holds significant amount of power like government, I think immediately everything is completely unbalanced once they step in. So in our culture where the government does get involved, yes, I think in America it's very, very shifted.
Absolutely, and I love how Peterson tells us to be accepting of others, whether we have very different backgrounds, people are different, but we have to respect these differences that other people have. Very good answer, Mel. Thank you. My next question is, can you think of times when you've been communicating with someone who was quite different from you, but you sought to identify something you both had in common? What are some common human experiences that can create bridges as we seek to establish common ground with others?
This one is a bit more lengthy in terms of how I would explain my own experience. So, I think for me, what I try to find as a similar boundary or a similar ground when I meet someone new, totally different, that I've never talked to before, is oddly enough something that most people would be considering like different, completely different. So I usually go for, what's your religion? Because people are usually, the people I've met, definitely not everyone, because there's always exceptions, but they always talk about like what it means to them, and they like to go into detail about it. And I'm always willing to learn that stuff because I don't know a lot about other people's religions, so I like to learn it. And for me, that's like one of the main similarities I find through the religion, because I myself am Pentecostal. Interesting. And most people don't know what that is. So in sharing, that's usually a common ground I find with people.
So that's interesting. Very good answer. Thank you for the great answer, Mel. Thank you. And I have one last question for you. So the question is, have you ever experienced culture shock, either abroad or in your own country? Describe the situation. How long did it take for your uncertainty and stress to subside? Reflecting on this experience and what you have learned in this particular chapter, what strategies could you have used to avoid feeling so uncomfortable?
Going back to me being Pentecostal, I wasn't born into Pentecost. I was brought into it at a later age.
Interesting.
So about when I was 10, got brought into it. And when you first show up to a Pentecostal church and you've never been to one as a kid, the first thing you notice is like, wow, everyone's wearing skirts, there's no jewelry. Like, if you're in pants, you're automatically like, oh, I don't want to be here, they're looking at me, that kind of thing.
Oh, wow.
So, and even whenever I got the memo, just skirts, just dresses, that kind of thing, they still do these things like children churches, where like on a specific day you'd meet up with other kids your age.
Oh, wow.
And they talk about like in front of the class, communicate, bonding throughout the church. But they were talking about experiences like the Holy Ghost and things that I had never heard of.
Very different.
So for a good 2 years after I came into that church, I was put off by everyone.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, because even if they're not judging you, you feel like it.
In a way, in a sense,
because you're dressed different, you act different, you haven't picked up everything that they have.
Thank you for that. That was a wonderful example, Melanie. So, upon that, this is the end of our interview. Thank you so much for allowing me to interview you.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome.